What's up guys, Intellitech Studios here, and today we'll be doing the full review on a vacuum that I've owned for a few years, but haven't actually reviewed up until now. And I was just about to pack it to give it to its new owner, and then I realized that I haven't done a video on it, so I gotta do that real quick. So this is a review of a Bissell PowerTrak Revolution, model 6591, although there's a bunch of different models. From what I understand, this one is the most common. So it's an older Bissell, as you'd expect, bagless, that sort of thing. But there's one interesting thing about this that differentiates this from the normal first-generation Bissell clean views. The dust cup design starts off with the design of a standard Bissell clean view with a round basic cup that undoes itself with a lock and seal lever, or at least that's what they call it. You simply pull out the container once it reaches the full mark and dump it directly into your trash. But it has two little additions. There are these little partitions right here built into the bin and these little grooves that slide out and can be cleaned. The purpose of this is that fine dust, as it swirls around in the cup, gets launched into these two side partitions as a means of separating fine dust before it reaches the upper tank filter. And despite the fact that that would sound like it's a gimmick, it actually works very, very well, and it does a great job at keeping the pre-motor filter clean compared to other Bissell vacuums with this design. Now, the original first-gen clean views that had this design were absolutely abysmal. Even big debris would go through this filter and end up on the pre-motor filter down here. But on this one, the pre-motor filter actually takes a somewhat reasonable amount of time to fill up with dust. So unlike the normal clean view where you would have to clean these filters every single time you use the vacuum, especially the upper tank filter, this one, you can get away with doing it in a normal amount of time. If you use this and you fill the bin all the way up to the full line, and it takes you about a week to do that, then I would say you'd want to clean these filters about every month, and possibly clean the upper tank filter every 2 weeks, depending on your usage. Although you can get away with doing it every month instead of every 2 weeks, depending on how much you use the vacuum. And I'll show you how to access that really quick. So the pre-motor filter right here, just pull straight out. There's a foam piece that simply lifts out of here and you can wash it. I recommend having a spare set on standby, and these filters are just foam, so they're dirt cheap. And that's especially important because after you wash these a few times, these filters will start to fall apart and you'll need to replace them. When you remove the dust container, you can actually turn, now you don't have to do this, but it makes it a little bit easier. You can turn this little knob right back here. You simply turn it counterclockwise, and then you can lift this entire section right out. There's also a clean filter indicator, but I don't find myself ever looking at this because it's not the most effective. The filter will get dirty long before this actually illuminates. It's more so of a suction indicator, because a lot of times these machines will still have suction whenever the filters are filled up with junk. Just what happens is they'll actually end up pulling a lot of that stuff through the motor, which causes premature motor failure on a lot of these units, unfortunately. So this filter twists counterclockwise, just like this, and lifts right out. So it's just a little piece of foam, and we can see it does get dirty fairly quickly, unfortunately, but I personally prefer this to the design of the newer Bissell PowerForce bagless systems, specifically the ones with the inner and outer circular filter like the one I just showed. So this setup is a lot better because these filters are a lot easier to clean without them trapping a lot of debris that's difficult to wash out. Pleated filters in general are not easy to wash out. And you can just simply twist this back clockwise, and that locks this upper tank into place, and then you can put this dirt cup back in. Now, this is not a sealed system, so filtration is not going to be the best in terms of actual output filtration. If you have allergies, this machine is not recommended, even if you find a good deal on it. But if you like the Bissell Clean View style design, but you just want something that filters a lot better, these little Revolution side pieces actually do their job at extending the life of these filters, at least in terms of allowing you more time to clean without needing to wash them as often. Although you still do need to wash them more often, and in a similar vein to a lot of other budget bagless vacuums of the early 2000s. But I'd much rather have this system than the previous Clean Views, the Clean View 2, or other variants of brands of types of filter designs like this, like the twin chamber Hoovers and the Whirlwind setup from Eureka. So out of all of those designs, this one personally is my favorite because it does actually do a good job at extending the life of these filters, and it just overall makes the experience of using the machine better because it has better dirt separation before it enters the filters. So this actually is a really good design in terms of actually improving upon the existing setup. Although this still isn't as good as the newer clean views that actually implement a proper dual cyclonic setup, but it at least is a big improvement over other designs with this dust cup setup. So one thing I do notice is that because a lot of fine dust, and because the fine dust part is actually really effective at getting into this, these little side pieces right here are also removable. They simply slide right out, which is important because sometimes if you're vacuuming up a lot of fine dust, these chambers can actually fill up before the main dust cup will, which would require them to be emptied. Now, of course, the way this is designed, it's not going to actually overflow these fill cups. It'll then just end up leaving more in the actual main dust cup itself. So you can mostly focus on the full line right here. And generally speaking, I don't recommend going above that because then when you pull out the cup, you're going to drop dirt everywhere. And having an exposed cup like this is bad enough because you're immediately breathing in all the dust that you just vacuumed up. So it's the kind of thing where once you remove it, you want to take it directly to the trash, or ideally outside, so that way you can just simply empty it. But at least there's no cyclone or anything crazy to clean out, so there is an advantage there. Since you saw how I can remove this top piece, this top section completely screws out and you can completely deep clean all of this very easily. So that is a nice feature. It's very easy to keep one of these clean and up and running. The problem is you just have to do it very often because these machines do require a lot of maintenance. Speaking of maintenance, we do have a HEPA filter right here, which I recommend changing about every year or so. Now in mine, it just has a standard post-motor filter, but a HEPA filter can be purchased, and in this case it actually came with a HEPA filter out of the box, but you can replace it with a washable filter that won't filter as well, but it's not a sealed system, so it's not going to be that much of a difference anyways, although I still do recommend using a HEPA filter. Although be careful because a lot of cheaper ones can often restrict airflow really badly, and that just pops in with two little clips, and it's fairly self-explanatory. On the front, we've got a headlight and 7 height adjustment positions, which is fine. There isn't really too many issues with that. It works. It allows you to adjust to pretty much any floor surface. And ignore the fact that it says bare floor because this machine is not bare floor friendly. This brush roll is very aggressive, which makes it very good at cleaning carpets, but it's not recommended for bare floors for that reason. There's no squeegee, there's no way to shut off the brush roller, and you do use a standard Bissell style 7-9-10 belt that I recommend replacing every 6 months. You want to make sure to keep any hair off of this brush roller too, because the bearings on these Bissells are very, very prone to failing, especially whenever hair gets into the brush roll. And these brush rolls are not easy to replace. And especially one of these machines with an older brush roller that's color matched, if you break this brush roller, you're not going to be able to find a color matched replacement. So you want to make sure to keep these in good shape and make sure there's not too much hair or thread wrapped around them. Because if you're very particular about all of your parts matching, then nowadays using one of these is not going to be the best, because you're going to be very upset if this brush roller breaks. You're not going to find anything that will replace it, at least without changing colors. And this bottom plate is held on by a couple clips, which is actually nice. There's no tools required to change a belt on this machine, so you don't need a screwdriver or anything in order to change a belt. It just simply pops right off and allows you to access the belt, the brush roller, and the main intake. As far as the attachments go, the attachments on this machine are fairly self-explanatory. You've got the same pull-off handle that a lot of Bissells of this era had, and you've got the built-in hose wand and a very nice stretch hose, although it's not going to be enough to get up your stairs, but it's a fairly decent amount. It's enough to get up into your corners and do your edging and all that. No worries. Although it is worth noting that the included extension wand is about half the length or 2/3 the length of the ones that came with the cheaper Power Forces, but very on par to what you'd get nowadays. So finding replacement attachments for this machine is not all that difficult. But this extension wand could be a little bit longer. Although you do get a nice long crevice tool, and it does the job. And of course you can buy extra extension wands and add them separately, and they both just nestle in right there. You also have this combination tool, which I actually bought this one brand new. So this essentially is an upholstery brush, but the bristles are way too soft to be a dusting brush, so I really only recommend this as an upholstery brush. You can slide the brush off for just an upholstery tool, but I don't find any reason to do that. I just simply use this tool fully put together as an upholstery brush. So there's not really any adequate dusting you can do with this machine, but as far as cleaning couches and stuff, this tool is actually fairly effective. And that just slides in right down there. You also have an air-powered turbo brush, which stores right here on the top of the handle. And as the ad says right there, it's great for cleaning stairs and pet hair, which is very true, because a lot of the newer Bissels have a much weaker version of this turbo brush, and that version just does not clean as well. A lot of times that version will stop whenever you make contact with any sort of upholstery. This does not have that problem, and it's machine agnostic too. So when you use that turbo brush on this machine, it still stops, whereas this one doesn't, even when you use it on the newer Bissels. So this turbo brush is much better quality, and it's also easy to service, simply coming apart with 2 screws. So if you need to service the turbine or pull some hair off of the brush, you can do that. This is a very effective turbine, and it's one of the best that you'll find on a budget upright of this era, and it's even better than what you'll find nowadays. And it's also worth noting that just like with all these other Bissels, you can use Dyson attachments on this from the Dyson DC-25 and newer in the upright range. So if you like those styles of attachments, you like the tangle-free turbine, or you want a nicer, softer dusting brush, it's actually very easy to get those attachments and use them on this machine. There also is a bagged version of this machine that's much less common, known as the Bissell PowerGlide Platinum and the Bissell PowerTrak. And the Bissell PowerTrak is one that I will be getting one of those soon for review, but it's a lot better than this, mainly because it has all the advantages, but also has the advantage of better filtration with better bags. So I definitely recommend that, but it's really hard to find one of those nowadays, and there's not really any reason to buy an older machine like that when you can buy the Sanitary SL4110A or the Bissell Big Green Commercial, which gives you a very similar body style design to this machine, both much better filtration and much better build quality. A lot of things like the pedal release are very prone to failing on these older machines, and that's been addressed on newer units. I also mentioned the issue with the motors as well. This particular one is in okay shape. It has a little bit of a whining sound to it, but it sounds relatively okay. So we'll conclude this review with a fairly basic pickup test, just on the rug and on the carpet, since, again, I don't recommend using this machine on bare floors, because while it will pick stuff up, it can also scratch your floors and scatter debris. The wheels on this one are a bit squeaky, but you've seen this machine run a bunch of times before. So the results are excellent, as you'd expect. There's only a few flakes left embedded deep in the carpet, and a couple of passes would certainly take care of that, and all of the bits on the floor are completely taken care of. So carpet cleaning performance on this machine, as with many other Bissels, are very excellent. So there's no complaints there, and you can actually kind of see that Revolution technology at work. A lot of the bigger flakes ended up in the cup, and a lot of the smaller flakes were shot into these side channels. So I'm personally a fan of this machine for the most part, but I still don't have much reason to use this over the bagged equivalents, so that's why I have chosen to sell this machine. I actually traded this with another vacuum collector for a Dyson DC-25 Blueprint, which you will see next on this channel. So that's my full review on the Bissell PowerTrak Revolution. It's definitely my favorite out of all of the bagless Bissels with this dirt cup design, or just bagless Bissels of this era and design in general. So if I was to purchase this machine again and find one in good condition, then I'd be certainly happy to own one again. But for the time being, I haven't used it too much, so it'll be going to a home that will appreciate it a little bit better. But like I mentioned, I'm supposed to be getting a Bissell PowerTrak, the bagged version of this machine. In fact, I was supposed to get it back in December, but I haven't heard from the seller in a while, so I'll have to reach out to them again about that. So yeah, this is Intellitech Studios signing out with my full in-depth review of the Bissell PowerTrak Revolution. Let me know what your thoughts on this machine are in the description or in the comments, and I will see you guys in the next video. I hope you all have a good one. Peace.